Hey everybody, it's Jeff. I put together this slideshow and quick video in preparation for our SIP team meeting on December 2nd. I hope you all can make it. What I'm hoping is that you'll have an opportunity between now and Monday to take, or that day, I think it's a Wednesday, have an opportunity to sit down 20, 30, maybe even a half hour. And I think what we'll do is we'll pay everybody 1 hour ahead of time. Kind of so you guys can be prepared for the meeting. I'll talk to Tammy about that piece just so you know. I want to talk about the slideshow and then have you guys go through it on your own before we come together. I wanted to do a little bit of an intro to save time because it's the one thing we're always fighting over right now in terms of trying to balance our lives. So hopefully this helps. The format of the slideshow is there's 5 areas. One is overall school, and then there's 4 department areas. 2 are attached to SIP goal data, and that's math and English language arts. And then each of the areas are broken down into kind of the whole department or the whole school. There's also the comparisons between female and male students, those students living above poverty, those at or below the poverty line. And I think that's categorized by families that make less than $44,000 a year. I don't know if that's national or state, but that seems to be the number that we use. At one time, that sounded like pretty good money many, many years ago. Nowadays, it's hard to get that money to stretch. We have our general ed students as compared to students with disabilities on IEPs. We have our English speaking, our native English speaking students who that's the language they know primarily. And then we also have our English learners. We have about 400 of them in our building. And we have a breakdown of the different groups. One of the ones that we use most often is Asian and white students. They tend to benefit most from the public school system, and comparison with students of color, and then for each of the individual demographic groups. So you'll see slides for that. You'll see the first slide, the one in green, and then you'll see the comparison with the one in yellow in terms of the way this is organized. The next piece is the way we look at this is important from what lens, our mind frame or our mindsets. So I want to just throw in these perspectives that our data represents something much more important than numbers and percentages. These are lives we're talking about. And we believe all adults at Auburn High School show up to do good. Same way we expect, we should always think about our kids wake up every morning and wanting to be successful. I want to recognize there's early wins in our data that should be celebrated. Those are things I want you to look for. I'll point out a few in the early slides. There's opportunities in our data that we must decide as to how we should approach them, and we can make recommendations as a SIP team. One of the recommendations is already working. It's our SIP boosters. Those are moving forward. How well we're extrapolating that information and making it actionable with our students remains to be seen. Our individual and collective curiosity should be discussed in our meeting, so please write them down as you go through the slides. Usually there are multiple reasons to what might be problems of practice associated with our gaps. Usually there isn't just one reason, there's multiple reasons, and we'll do some theorizing on that. And similarly, there are usually multiple solutions or practices to mitigate problems of practice, and that's really where I'm hoping we can spend most of our time. I'm also going to ask that we really stay in our circle of influence and not our circle of concern. That's a Steve Covey thing. If you haven't read The 7 Habits, it's really things we really have control over versus things we don't have control over. What I love about our equity goal, it's attached to attendance. And sometimes that ends up being the default. If students don't show up, we can't work with them. Well, there's ways we can go about getting them to show up more. But we know in the world of the coronavirus, there's just other challenges that as a school, it's going to be more difficult for us to help families overcome. But we'll try. Okay. Our overall data for the school, as you can see, potentially about a little over 80% of our kids can attain credit. Looks like about 19% don't have that opportunity, at least at this point. We'll have more opportunities for them as they move along. But the thing that I think was a win here is we had way more A's than we normally might. About 15% more than what might be in the normal world. So, okay, let's get through the way this is broken down. Female students versus male students. You can see for yourself what the gaps are. The numbers at the bottom, we don't have those in the department slides. It's just more of the overall school. That's the number of grades. Most of that represents the number of students times 3. Not all students have 3 classes. Some have less than 3 classes, like some of our Running Start students. So it's not exact, but we do have a few more boys than we do girls. And there's a lot of theory behind why girls are doing better than boys, or the boys aren't doing as well as the girls, which we can talk about that and see how that might apply to Auburn High School. The poverty group, those below that, and then against those who are not experiencing poverty. And we know that this coronavirus has only made things more difficult for those with less. Okay, general ed students as compared to students with disabilities. Again, you know, we have been recognized by the state and we continue to do good work. And I think that's a celebration. So some really great opportunities here. English speaking versus English learners. And you can see we've got some tremendous gaps there, which is what our SIP speaks to quite a bit. Asian and white students, there's those who benefit most from our current public school system, as opposed to students of color. And we know we have significant gaps, and those are one of the big primary focuses we're working on. And coronavirus, just go away. I know we can do a better job. Non-Native American students, as compared to Native American students, we have about 34 Native American students in our school. Probably more that don't check that box, but these are the ones that receive some extra support through Leslie's program and through the Muckleshoot tribe and so forth. Again, another area of opportunity. Black students as compared to non-Black students. I guess I would consider that a win with a lowercase w. I want to find out more. I know that some of our African-American Black males aren't doing so well. And again, that's where we can get down into the data and really start extrapolating some important information. So don't let this just be a total feel good here. We got work to do. Latinx versus non-Latinx. It's more pronounced in this particular group overall that we've got gaps. Multi-race students, those who check that box versus non. Traditionally, in the last 4 years, we tend to do pretty well with this group. They kind of stay pace with just a little bit below the white students and a little bit more below the Asian students if you're just breaking them out by individual groups. This tends to be our 3rd highest achieving group at our school. Non-Pacific Islanders, Pacific Islanders, this is a big gap area for us. So that gives you a little bit idea on how it's broken down slide by slide. Let's go into math just for a few slides. Math credit attainment just for Q1. These are our SIP goals. You know, we're trying to do 5% or better overall with credit attainment. I think we're going to be able to kind of hold our water there. We won't make much push on that if we stay the same for this year, but we can just take those numbers and extend them out for when we come back in the real world. So hang in there. White and Asian students, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to come pretty close, especially if you take out the groups that are impoverished versus those that aren't. Students of color, we're going to come up short if we continue what we're doing. And I haven't sat down to figure out if the gap's widening or pretty much staying the same. I think it depends on what groups you're comparing each other with. So this is overall in math, pretty close to the school-wide results. And that's out of about 650 grades. Female students in math, male students in math. You can see the comparisons there. Then we go above poverty, at or below. You can see we have some things to work through and get better at when we're talking about families living in poverty and serving their students in this world. Gen Ed students, students with disabilities. You know, overall as a school, we're doing pretty well in math. We've got some areas to grow there. And again, those are things we can talk about. English speaking versus English learning. We've got some room there too to grow. Asian and white students of color. So, I guess if I had to give any type of a gut reaction, I'm thinking about CRT in our math classrooms right now. Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just where my brain went to right away. What kind of culturally responsive practices are we using on a sustained and authentic level in math with examples? One of the questions I ask a lot of our math teachers is relevancy. It's an area we will get better at when we're giving examples. We got to find things that come from more than just the white culture. Very important. Non-Native American versus Native American students, and just so on down the line. So there's another what looks like a victory or a win. Doesn't mean we don't want the red bars to go down. But anyway, I think that's enough on just kind of taking you through that. Please go through the rest, write down your curiosities. We'll show up at the end of the day on December 2nd. We'll have a great meeting, and we'll have some goals as far as what we want to communicate with our school. We want to make sure we're communicating the wins we're having in this pandemic, and then also some areas we have to still emphasize and continue to emphasize. And, it's kind of the law of repetition. So anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the 2nd. Have a great day.